I'm Kyle from the Clyde Bar in Helensburgh. On the 24th of March, we have the Clyde Bar Comedy Night with our headliner, Lee Kyle, who I'm glad to say is with us today. Hello, Lee. How are you, pal?
Hello, Kyle. You're right, mate.
Good,
Yes,
mate.
I'm good. I'm good. For the purposes of the recording, I'm good, rather than ill, like I told you before the recording. I'm healthy, everyone. Healthy and happy.
Excellent. Sounds good. Sounds good. Before we kick off, can I just say, Mr. Kyle, you have a fantastic name.
Why, thank you. And you have a fantastic first name. I don't know your surname, but assuming it's not like Hitler or something, I'm sure it's lovely.
No, no. It's Rapallini, so it's very.
No, not bad.
No, thank you. Thank you very
Not
much.
bad. A product, I'm guessing, of the fine history of Italian immigration into Scotland.
Is indeed, yes.
Yeah.
Is
Which I learned about through Ua Wooly as a child.
that right?
Yeah, he'd always be visiting the ice cream man or the barber, and they were always Italian. And I asked my granddad about it, and he explained.
Oh,
Because
there
for
we
some
go.
reason, a lot of people in the northeast of England buy the Sunday Post. I've never really quite worked out why, but they do.
Fair enough. Each
Sorry, I
their
do
own, suppose.
ramble.
No, rambling's good. Rambling is absolutely fine. More you ramble, less I have to.
Deal.
So, where are you calling us from today?
I'm from South Shields in it's just south of Newcastle, South Tyneside. It's a mixed town. 26% unemployment, but my family still thought I'd gone lardy-dar when I moved here from the next town along. And I'm just close enough to the beach that if you walked past where I live, you'd fool yourself into thinking it might be okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, you're coming down to, or coming up, I suppose, coming up to Helensburgh,
Yeah.
the bonny west coast of Scotland, where it's always sunny and shiny. Not right now, it's raining just now, surprise, surprise. But I assume you've been up to Scotland before, done some gigs up here?
Oh, yeah, I've been to Scotland loads of times. It's not as much since lockdown. I'm suddenly, I mean, again, I'll not bore people, but for various health reasons, I've only just started getting into traveling as much as I used to. But I was in Glasgow and Aberdeen a couple of weeks ago. I used to be in Scotland maybe one weekend a month before lockdown doing gigs, so I'm very
Oh, that's great.
familiar with it. Yeah.
Good.
Less familiar with the West Coast. Obviously, a lot of it's Central Belt
Mhm.
based, but I've done little bits. Millport, I've done gigs in Ayr and a few other places. So I don't think I've ever been to Helensburgh. Although weirdly, it came up in conversation with an act the other day who had, and I didn't even mention it. So it's
Oh,
obviously got a roaring comedy trade. That's all I can
yes,
think.
no, it's on the up, it's on the rise.
Yeah,
Helensburgh's
yeah.
comedy scene. Okay, what can I ask? Well, what got you started in comedy? How did it all begin?
Oh, so I'd wanted to do it for a lot of years. It would always be my goal, really. But I don't want to say it was before the internet because I'm not that old. I started in the end of 2009, but it was before it was a boom in so many people just doing it. Like it's so much easier to find your first gigs now. And back then it was a bit more closed shop. I didn't know how to go about it. Although I did have a couple of friends who were comedians, but I didn't want to ask them in case they thought I'd be shit. So I put off for a decade instead. I knew them through, so I used to be a wrestler before this, which seems not only like a lie, but a different lifetime ago. You know, it seems so like I did what? So I did that for 9 years. And there's a comic in the Northeast called Stephen Petty, who was a wrestler who had his last match against me, who was put off asking for years. And then it turns out it was as easy as you sign up for an open mic night and give it a try. So I did that at the end of 2009 and just was really bad, like even by the standards of a new act. But I sort of had something in us that had a sort of thought I'd become all right one day. So I just plugged away, just kept going. And over time got slightly better.
That's good. Good. So the wrestling career is that still going, or is that's done enough?
Oh, that's long gone. I sort of left that to start doing stand up. I had a couple of months gap and I got towards 30 and started to feel sore. And now stays are a challenge now. Like I'm not there's no way I could, even if I wanted to.
Well, the next question was, if you weren't a stand-up, what did you want to be instead of a stand-up? Well, that kind of answers that question, I suppose. But did you have any kind of other aspirations, or was it either just kind of the
My
wrestling?
aspirations, honestly, like when I look back, because we all have times in our life, don't we, where we go, oh God, I'm such a waste of time. I've not done anything I wanted to do. But I've genuinely, when I look back, this sounds so grim, but my honest assumption when I was 14 or 15 is that because I was bright, but I genuinely thought my thing was I would leave school and then once I was 18, I would sign on and then I would just do that forever. Because that is sort of what I knew. Sadly, like
No,
that is what
no,
life was for men around my way. And I didn't sort of, I didn't even think of it as a negative thing. I was just like, well, I'll do that. So basically, the fact that I've got a place to live is a bonus, really. I'm doing all right.
That's great. That's kind of what you want, isn't it? I know a few folk that have kind of signed on, they're in the 30s now and just really never kind of grew up. So
yeah, and it's sort of and I did have a time of doing that in my early 20s, and I don't regret it. It was, in a way, it's fun, but I'm glad something happened for us because I'm not a great employee, so I've got lucky really that.
There you go. You can work for yourself, and that's
yeah. My ADHD's pushed us into an area that can make us at least a small living. That's something, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so from your stand-up, where would you say is the best venue you've ever played?
Oh, this is a hard one, because it's so much easier to answer questions about bad gigs. But I would say the one I've most enjoyed playing recently is I've done a couple of times, and I've just booked my own show in there for next year, which is a big risk because it is big, which is the Tyne Theatre in Newcastle, which is just not only a lovely theatre, but has a wonderful history of comedy, in the region. So it's almost like you're stepping on stage with just these ghosts of the past, these either massive deals or these people who've been forgotten, but were big. And then there's a history in there, which is something. And I would have to say me closest to a home club is the Stand in Newcastle, which I'm there a lot of times. And it's great to have a stage where you can go on and there's no pressure at all because you know that you'll be all right there. Because it's like probably more than, other than my house, it's probably the place I am the most, So yeah, it's probably it.
So with so the easier question then, ask what is your best where's the best venue played? What's the worst venue you've played in?
Okay, the worst venue. Worst is such an odd thing because often it's the ones that aren't real venues. So the worst venue I've ever been asked to play, and it's one of the few gigs I've turned down, where I've turned down a lot of gigs, but sometimes if the money's right, you go, oh God, I will put myself through that. But one where the money was good and I just went, I can't do this, was someone asked me to do a stand-up set in front of their dad's coffin as it went into the flames. I just thought, and I said, well, who was he? And I thought, well, is he somehow a fan of mine? I was like, no, he just found us on a comedy booking site. I went, you don't know who I am, and you want your last memory of your dad to be me in front of his thing doing this. There's just no way. There's just no way.
There we go. All the answers that I wasn't expecting that one.
yeah, and it's a strange thing as a comic who's like a working pro comic who isn't like famous. You have to be adaptable. So what that means is like you have to be able to do a lot of different gigs, but also it means you end up in situations where you go, "Oh, this is awful." Like where there's proper stand-up. It's often the ones where you're the only act booked for something where comedy's not quite suitable. I did a kids gig once in Hamilton in the shopping centre. Me and two other acts, and there was nobody there. And it wasn't even like, so the stage wasn't even facing the main drag, which would have been awful on a Saturday afternoon. It would have been awful, but it wasn't. It was facing an empty shop, and there wasn't anybody watching. And I just remember saying to the bloke, like, well, there's nobody here. Clearly, this isn't going to happen. So just give us the money and we'll go, And he said I had to do the time. He said it was a council-funded gig, and if the stage was empty and anyone from the council came, we wouldn't get paid. So I had to do 20 minutes of kids' comedy to nobody. Just nobody's there. And now you think, we've driven from a different country for this.
Yeah. Fuel,
and you're just standing
hotels. There. Oh, we're losing you a wee bit there.
So,
1 second, bud. Your internet connection is on.
Am I back here?
Yes. Okay, yes, that's you back.
Am I back?
Yep.
Am I back?
Okay, so crack on. So what can you tell me is if it comes to mind, what is your most memorable heckle?
Oh, it's of children. Like, there's no fear of hecklers really because they're so rare that they're not like people imagine. That, like, people assume, especially new comedians, assume that people are out to get you at every gig. But in reality, most people are coming to have a nice time. And after you've done it a while, and I compare a lot of gigs, so I'm absolutely at home talking to the audience. But kids is different because adults will only really heckle if they're either dead hammered or they really don't like you. And you can find kids will just shout things out just to make you feel bad. And I had a gig, but the weird thing about kids is they'll do this, but then they will immediately just start watching again. So I had one recently who was enjoying the gig perfectly well, and in Kendal in the Lake District, and just said, "This is a waste of my dad's money," because I don't. It's an adult gig. I don't patronize them. I talk down to them. I talk to them like I would adults, but without swearing. So I just replied, "Well, you're a waste of your dad's love," and moved on. So it was fine.
There we go. That's one way to shut them down, I suppose.
The worst heckle I ever had was off a 12-year-old kid who eventually, I mean, it was a sad thing. We had to borrow him from the venue in the end because he'd spoiled every gig for 9 months, and he was like older than the other kids and a bit like he was clearly troubled then, would try, but there was anyway. I'll move on to the fun part. So I'll start that bit again. So the worst heckle I ever had was a 12-year-old kid who just looked at me and just said, "Lee, why don't you just kill yourself?" The sad thing is I didn't have a great answer. I was like, well, I've considered it. The answer, son, is tablets, but let's not pull that thread.
Turn into a different kind of show.
Yeah.
Oh,
Kids are, I can see why a lot of comics are scared of doing kids gigs, because you don't have that type, like an adult's gigs, if they like you and you've relaxed, if you've got control of the crowd, you can do a long routine and they'll listen. Kids, you're always in danger of them saying the exact thing you don't want them to say at any moment. You can't control it in the same way. Yeah.
So do you prefer performing for adults, or do you prefer performing for kids?
Oh, adults by miles. Like, kids shows to me are sort of a sideline. They're a nice thing. What it often means is, so if I'm doing a weekend of gigs somewhere, I can fit in extra work during the day when I'm away from home anyway. And I do enjoy it, but I got into this to do stand-up comedy for adults, it's what I write. Kids things, they tend to be more off the cuff. I'll go in there and I'll chat to them and I can do it, but I probably shouldn't say this if any promoters are saying this about kids gigs, but I wouldn't miss it if I never did it again. I don't like children, to be honest.
And I've got two.
Yeah, I've got one and he's 23, and that's the best thing that ever happened to him moving out. Like, I love him, Kia, if you watch this, but a lot of it's contractual. No, I do enjoy doing kids shows, but yeah, it was not. That's not why I started doing this,
Yeah. So, you have a podcast.
Yes.
Your podcast is O Vienna with Lee Kyle and your son. Can you tell us what it's about?
Yeah, I've got a podcast. It's called O Vienna, after the Ultravox song that famously only got to number 2 in the charts and was beaten by "Shut Up Your Face" by Joe Dolce. And musos get dead annoyed about that. And what we do is we listen to songs that a lot of people say should have got to number 1 in the charts, that picked at number 2. And then we discuss them compared to the song that got a number 1 and run and talk about the charts that week. And obviously I'm older than my son because that's how science works and that. So I tend to know more about most of the stuff than him, and I will, talk to him about the songs and that. But it's less twee than that sounds. Like, he is my son and we get on very well, but we very much have a very jokey, sweary relationship. It's not like, it sounds like, a father-son podcast about pop music. That'll be very sweet. Nah, he's a horrible little bastard.
If you could go back in time and perform for any historical figure, who would it be?
Oh, that is a good question. Jesus. First off, would be interested. I'd love to be, when I said I've done some gigs where you go, why am I here? This is tough. I'd quite like to be the turn at the Last Supper. And just be like, Judas, think about this, mate. You know what I mean? Are you sure this is what you want to do? And then it'd be quite a good room, really, because Thomas would be in there. He'd be like a heckler, just doubting everything I was saying. But I think I'd like to find out more about, the lesser apostles that we don't hear about. We've all heard of Peter and Judas and those lads, but what's Thaddeus's game and Bartholomew? I'd like to go, so what do you lads do for a living? And just go in on them. And do you think, I wonder if I wonder if Jesus would be a good comedy audience. Like whether, because often you have, if there's a large group in, right, you have a leader of the group and everyone sort of looks at them to see if they should laugh first, and that's difficult. But if that leader of that group is Jesus, you've really got to impress him, haven't you? Because they're not going to go for it if you've not got Jesus going. And I wonder if he could take a joke, you know what I mean? If you feel like, yeah, how he's about friends with prostitutes and that. If you're like, oh, Jesus, you and Mary Magdalene, or whether he'd be like, I'm not having this. And he gets his dad on us, which I could do without. It's a lot of pressure, isn't it? Yeah, that's too difficult. Henry VIII, he seemed like a laugh.
Yeah. It's the hard thing with doing with the comedian trying not to laugh. Oh, good. Okay. Where are we? Okay, right. Okay. Do you have any pre-show rituals?
Oh no, I don't really. I try to just dick about a lot with the other comics because sometimes they don't want that because some other ones do and they like to get in a headspace. But I find that I used to be more nervous than I am, but I find that I'm at my best when I'm not thinking about the gig till I'm on. Like I've got enough material in my head and stuff, and that I don't like to spend the whole time thinking about it. I'm best the more relaxed I am. So for me, the ideal gig is one where I'm dicking about with a mate backstage, we're having a chat, and then my name gets called, and I go, "Oh, sorry, I've got to go," rather than spending half an hour going, "Oh shit, a gig, shit." So I suppose my ritual is to try not to give a shit. You know.
Absolutely,
Even though
yeah.
obviously I really, really do, but I have to trick my mind into not, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to finish off with, if you're up for it, a wee this or that game. So I'm going to give you two answers and you choose one of them. You up for
Yeah,
that?
no bother. Yeah.
Okay, so start off nice and easy. Tea or coffee?
Oh, coffee. Like, I don't like it, but it makes us feel like, oh, I'm some sophisticated Parisian cafe culture man, rather than living in a town on the banks of the Tyne.
Okay, Newcastle FC or Sunderland?
Well, it's tricky this because I don't want to get controversial, but I grew up supporting Newcastle and they were a very important part of my life. And therefore, I'm midway between Newcastle and Sunderland, but also I have to hate Sunderland. That is just how, but also for political reasons, sadly, I've moved away from Newcastle United as well. So I will say, you know, for the Saudi thing, which I got to, you know, I don't want to go into it because it leads to a lot of arguments around here, but it's just a thing I felt I had to do. Basically, my son's my stepson, and he's half Yemeni, and like, I'm sort of feeling like I can't support a team run by the government of somewhere who's doing a genocide in Yemen. You know, it doesn't feel right. So I will say South Shields FC.
There we
go.
That works. Chris or Rosie Ramsey?
Oh, I shouldn't. Okay, so I have worked with them both on occasion, and they're both quite sweet, actually. I'm going to say Chris because he has paid me money to do support sometimes, and I'm really that. I'm that much of a. He's got into Chris's car, and I don't know him that well. He's like a nice lad, but he doesn't do the same gigs he used to do. He does arenas, and it's different, you know. You don't bump into him as much, but I did a couple of supports for him once when he was running out a new show, and he picked me up, and he had motivational tapes on in his car that he forgot to switch off before I got in, going, "You can do this, you can soar." And he went, "You're going to tell everyone, aren't you?" The answer is, yes.
Yeah. Okay, Newcastle Brown Ale or Tennant's Lager?
It would have to be brown ale, but only because like Tennant's isn't a good lager, is it? Like I've got a soft spot for it but again, that's just because I like Glasgow, and I've walked past the factory and stuff a few times, and I'm like, oh, I like that. But then Newcastle Brown Ale, of course, isn't made in Newcastle anymore and is now made with different ingredients in his shit. So fuck it, Tennants. Yeah, you know, brown ale was one of those things on the EU list of things that had to be made in a specific place and was protected, like say champagne.
Yeah.
the brewery was so cheap and shitty, they moved into fucking County Durham or something, and you're just like, you dicks. You had one thing, and you went, yeah, but we can save 20 pence a year, so.
Oh well. Okay. So a night out or a night in?
Oh, in. Oh, I've never had a night out and thought, oh, I'd not rather be in. I'm very much a home person. Like even when, like, obviously I have to travel a lot, and I always feel a little bit like I'd rather be home. Absolutely. Like I like just sitting here with my wife and cats and guinea pigs, watching old episodes of Prisoner Cell Block H on YouTube. If I had to choose, that is my best night.
Okay. Sound like
And
me
I
as
think
well.
a lot of it's because when you're doing this, you're in pubs and clubs and that so many nights that going to one on your night off is just like, oh God, no, you know. It's
Yeah,
just,
no, yeah, I get what you mean. It's like
yeah, absolutely.
working here. It's just like, yeah, I'd rather not go out. I just want to stay in. We're going
Yeah,
to
why
pub
would
tonight.
you?
But I was there earlier. No thanks.
Yeah. I'm always there, you know, like
So, a fry up or a cereal breakfast?
well, I've stopped eating meat the past few years. So I would have to say so fry-ups aren't as good, but I would go with the caveat that when I was eating meat, fry up if it was a Scottish one, because you'd have nailed breakfast more than English breakfasts. Like the idea that a round sausage is better than one that cooks evenly is ridiculous. It's not like it's no benefit to it being round.
Oh man, I love a fry up. So, would you prefer to perform to a big, quiet crowd or a small, loud crowd?
Oh, small, loud, small. Yeah, I love a small crowd anyway. Like not too small, but although
Yeah.
not
Not
zero.
nobody.
Yeah, and I have done it to one as well. I did my first ever Edinburgh Fringe show to one person, which, was, but yeah, whatever size the crowd, if they're up for it, that's exactly it. I do have faith in myself that if it's a large, quiet crowd, that I can find ways to win them round, and it's quite satisfying when that happens. But yeah, excited people, whatever the number. I'd rather do like a gig of 4 people loving it than 400 people hating it.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
so, rather, when you would, uh, when you're listening to something, is it music or a podcast?
When I'm traveling, normally podcasts. But I have got this sounds. I got back into music again during lockdown. I just stopped listening for years. I think I was depressed, I'll be honest. But I got, yeah. But I've got really back into music now. I've kind of, yeah, but not to the point. And I don't think not to the extent I was when I was in my teens. But I think that's normal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas I tend to listen to long podcasts when I'm away because I'm traveling on megabuses and I can drift in and out and go to sleep without a new song starting and then jolting me to go, ooh, you know. So I listen to 6 hour long podcasts. That's what I listen to.
It's all right. And finally, last one, ant or dick.
I know the difference, like what they look like. I don't know the personality difference between them really, but I will say when they were PJ and Duncan, and Deck did all the singing, so he must be more talented, and did all that drink driving and that, didn't he? So let's go Deck. We'll go Deck. Yeah, fuck off, Ant.
Into the pub, you prick.
Yeah, you fucking arsehole.
All right, Lee. Well, that is
I've got a show that's on YouTube from the 20th of March at 8 p.m. on YouTube called Lee Kyle, that is my name, Disco Twix, which is a show I filmed at the Stand Comedy Club. It's like a 4-camera setup, and I put it on there for free because I want as many people to see it as possible. It's me it's about gender and oddness and class war if there's time, and me being aggressively anti-right wing because I think right wing people are soft as shit. There you go. And are we still here? Is Sam coming through all right?
Try again. So we just missed that last little part.
Where did it cut out?
Literally just at the end.
Okay, so I'll just do the plug for the thing. What date's the gig here? Sorry, just off the top of my head.
24th of March, Friday, 24th of March.
Hello, people of it's Helensburgh, like Edinburgh, right?
Helensburgh.
Hey, people of Helensburgh, I'm coming from America. I'm not, I'm lying, he is. Hello, Helensburgh. Come to the Clyde bar on the 24th of March. I'll be doing stand-up comedy. Look, I'm not dead famous, but I am proper good, so don't worry. You're in safe hands. I've done it loads. Come and have a lovely time. We'll make you laugh. I'm coming with Anya Atkinson as well, who's got a very similar accent to mine. Because, you go, well, how did that happen? The answer is, we're not the best comics in the world, but we're very good at splitting petrol. Anya's great. I'm a big fan of hers. And hey, she's a big fan of mine. So if she was here, she'd tell you to come and watch it. And you should come and watch it. I'm looking forward to being there. I've heard nothing but lovely things about your town. I've heard nothing about it, but I'm sure it's dead nice. I'm not very good at this bit, but I'm good at the bit on the stage. I promise. Love you.
Perfect. That's great.
Sorry, that was rambling shit.
No, that's great. That's great. I mean,